Hey guys, it's time for my September rewind. So this is a look back at what I read in September with a quick thumbs up, thumbs down rating. As I mentioned in my October TBR, my computer is on the fritz, so videos are going to be fairly light for the time being. I do have a haul recorded for you, but I'm not going to be able to post it yet, so just keep your fingers crossed that I can get this fixed soon. But because of that, I'm going to try to go through these fairly quickly. First up, I read Stormdancer by J. Kristoff. That one got sent off to Liz of Consumed by Books, but I'm going to give it a thumbs up with a big caution. Basically, I did end up loving it, but it was a really slow, very info-dumpy beginning that almost made me give up on it. First 50 pages were torture, the next 50 pages were sort of torture but somewhat looking up, and it really didn't kick in until the two main characters sort of meet and then the story explodes. There was so much crap thrown at you in the beginning that you really don't need to know right off the bat, that it was just bogged down in that and wasn't interesting, and for a lot of people I think is probably going to be confusing. I think it was just the sort of debut author rookie mistake in thinking that your audience isn't going to be able to handle your world or understand everything if you don't give it to them all at once, which is really bad. It's not what you want. You want to be able to work in the key points when they are key points. So once it got over that hump, it was actually really enjoyable. I really did like the characters and their relationship to each other. The steampunk aspect was kind of a throwaway for me, but I did like the story. Whether I will put number 2 straight to the top of my wish list is debatable. I think I will read it, but I won't necessarily be chomping at the bit for it. But I think there are plenty of people out there that are going to love it. If you are a patient reader and willing to slog through or skim some info dumpiness in the beginning, it's worth picking up. But if you're not, I wouldn't bother. Vessel by Sarah Beth Durst. This gets so many thumbs up, like as many as I can give it. My toes are pointing up to. It's just excellent. One of my favorite reads this year. I guess you'd have to call it epic fantasy. I think it's more than that. I think it's more layered, and I really loved the premise. I love the world. I love the characters. Liana is one of my favorite heroines that I've read in a good long while. I absolutely adored her. Each book I read by Sarah Beth Durst I'm liking more. This is definitely my favorite so far. Other than a slight bobble at the end, solid all the way through. One of my favorite reads this year. If you haven't picked it up or weren't sure if you wanted to pick it up, please do so. I really liked it. I read volumes 2 and 3 of A Bride's Story by Kaoru Mori. They've already gone back to the library, so I'll just show you this one. I think that the series grows with each one. I like it more with each volume. Volume 3 takes the story in a completely different direction and follows different characters, and I was really hesitant about that, but I actually really loved it, though it did feel rushed. But if you are in the mood for something very different for a graphic novel, something more historical and very intricate, I think you can't go wrong with Kaoru Mori. Babe in Boyland by Jody Gurman. This one was on my wish list, and I very rarely wishlist contemporary, but I heard great reviews and it just sounded really cute, and it did not disappoint. Thumbs up. Now I think that a lot of people are going to see similarities in it to a lot of other things. I think that it does stand on its own. It definitely is reminiscent of similar books, but I think anytime you have a cross-dressing girl who's sort of undercover in Boyland, all those books and movies are going to sound the same, because essentially they are. It's how you pull it off. And I think Jody Gurman did a fabulous job. Her characters were really vibrant. Natalie was hilarious, and I loved watching her sort of navigate this world that she was completely lost in. It was fantastic. I flew through it. It's a very quick, very engaging read. So if you like contemporary or you're wanting something funny and different, cannot go wrong. The Girl Who Fell Beneath Fairyland and Led the Revels There by Catherine M. Valente. This is book 2 in the Fairyland series. The first book is The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a ship of her own making. I had the honor of kicking off the Fairyland blog tour, so my review for this is already up, as is a guest post from Catherine and a giveaway of both books in the series. I will leave links to those definitely go enter. I think there are some people who are going to feel a little let down by this or think that it lacks a little bit of the magic of the first one. I didn't feel that way. I think that September is growing and maturing, and so it's a different sort of slant. We're seeing it through the eyes of a girl who now has a heart. September's more introspective, she's a little more cautious, but she's still fully September. I think it's also a little bit more bittersweet, a little more melancholic, and that sort of pervades the whole story. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I think some people who just want something light and whimsical and young and fresh might feel like a little bit of that is missing. But I think that new depth is added to the story, and I really, really, really enjoyed it. I think they're a great crossover for kids, teens, and adults. Well worth your time. Audrey's Guide to Witchcraft, also by Jody Gurman. This one does get a thumbs up, but kind of a light thumbs up. It's not a thumbs down at all, but to me this one's a little more throwaway. I feel like it's very similar to other books of its nature, other sort of mass markety witchy books, urban fantasy and all that. I liked it, and it's still very readable and still very fast moving, but having read Babe in Boyland first, those characters came alive to me. And this one, they felt a little bit more, not quite stock characters, but a little closer, you know, definitely more familiar. I didn't get as much of a unique voice from them. And it also, I think, was a little bit chaotic in parts. It felt more like I was reading an arc and not a finished book. Like it still maybe had some revision to go through or some tightening to go through. That being said, it's still very engaging, still very enjoyable. There was never a part that I wanted to just put it down and give up on it. I liked it, it gets its thumbs up, but coming off the heels of Babe in Boyland, which I loved, it was just a little bit of a letdown. But definitely a good read for this Halloween season. Fathomless by Jackson Pierce. This one gets a big thumbs up. This is my favorite thing that I've read by Jackson Pierce so far. This is the final book in her sort of fairy tale adaptation series, the first two being Sisters Red and Sweetly. Now, I haven't read Sisters Red, so I know that there are probably some things that I'm missing out on, little inside bits of knowledge, but I have read Sweetly, so I did get those ones. But I think whether you've read all of them or just this one, it stands on its own just fine. You don't have to have all those little tidbits from the other books. I had no problem understanding anything, I had no problem connecting to the characters, and in fact, they were my favorite so far. It's very dark and a little grim, and I love that in my fairy tales, so it had me right away from that aspect. I think there's some people who are going to feel like the ending was too open and they want all of their loose ends tied up with a bow. I am not that person ever, so for me it was perfect. It was a little rushed maybe, but it gave me what I wanted, and I think that it gave a good, more authentic ending for the characters and not a Disney ending, and I appreciate that. I think it's well worth picking up, whether you've read the rest of her series or not. This one's worth it. So that was everything I read in September. Let me know what you think of what I read and if you agree with my ratings.